Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Now, in my garden at least, the Japanese beetle glut that we've experienced this year seems to be waning. So the pheromone traps are basically capturing a tremendous amount, but even there we're starting to capture fewer and fewer. This means that either we've missed the season or we haven't captured them and they've laid their eggs and they just die off after that. So we'll see what happens. They've fed, they've done the damage to the plants at the top, and now we know that there's over 200 plants that they're going to attack at the root level in the next year or so. So we go around, we take a look, we see, we try and keep our lawns and gardens healthy, well-fed, growing, watered, so that they can combat some of the basic damage that is going to happen or has happened to the plants. Now, with white grub, it's usually in my garden the European chafer or the June bug that do the most damage. And of course, now that they aren't seem to be, at least this year, very, very prolific, it seems to be all the Japanese beetle, that the white grubs from all three of these are going to be attacking the plants at the root level. So they've done the damage at the top, now they're going to do the damage down below. Now, they're laid as eggs, and eventually they will rub out and start eating at the root level. They'll eat plants like hostas and turf grass, etc. And most of you all know it as a turf grass problem. Well, okay, but they will go after, at least the Japanese beetle will go after some 200 different plants. Now, they're done, basically. I have to admit, I haven't seen a lot of root damage, but again, they're still in the egg stage or hatching. Now, Michael Stangel's Lawn Care, sent me pictures this week of white grub, and they are very tiny. They are smaller than a dime, but they are starting to feed on the turf grass in our area. This means that they'll be feeding everywhere, just not in turf grass, but on all the plants out there. So this means that the earliest laid eggs are actually hatching, and white grub is there. Now, whether it's a white grub, a Japanese beetle, or white grub from European chafer or from the June bug, I'm not going to describe how to tell, because 1, it's too hard, and 3, you're going to have to pick them up with a magnifying glass and take a look at their rear ends. So, too complicated. They're all going to be killed the same way, and if you're where we are, it means nematodes. If it is in an area where there is not a pesticide ban, we know that it's going to be in the next couple of weeks. You're going to have to apply a pesticide at the recommended rate. With nematodes, you're going to have to apply them and keep the area watered and moist down at least 3 to 4 inches minimum in order to keep the nematodes alive, which will attack the white grub and go and kill them. Now, as a result, you need to plan this out. This is going to make your water bill go up. This is going to not guarantee that you won't have any damage. So you're going to have to do some maintenance and care. If you've used the pesticide, probably a good spring feeding along with good care throughout the next season will probably be enough. With the nematodes, you're going to have to just keep them watered probably for the next 4 to 6 weeks, nice and moist to keep the nematodes alive. If our temperatures get well up into, let's say, 90 degrees, high 80s, then you know the nematodes are going to either die out or go down deep and not going to attack the grubs, which are up at the root level. So it means we pray for not too high a temperature, pray for rain, and pray to pay the water bill. So now that will be the way to get around that particular bug or bugs. Now, there are many other bugs that are in our garden at this time of year, and these are the type of bugs you're going to have to be looking for and the stages that they're at in your garden in August. Now, we're looking at bronze birch borer on birch. It's in the larva stage, which means it's the easiest to kill. On deciduous trees, there's a lot of plant bugs, aphids, leafhoppers, and they are relatively easy with a pesticide, but they're very difficult to control any other way except with an insecticidal soap. Many of the plant bugs are more like a leafhopper, and they just move so quickly you'll never control them. Herbaceous perennials, the two-spotted spider mites, if it's hot and dry, we're sort of looking at. We're not as hot and dry as we have been in previous summers, at least in this area, but in the hot, dry areas of this continent, the two-spotted spider mites are going to be a real problem. Insecticidal soap is going to be the best. Euonymus, its Euonymus scale is actually in the second crawler stage, and the black vine weevil is in the egg, larva, and adult stage. Now, you can control them in the larva stage. You can't control them in the egg stage, and they're difficult to control in the adult stage. The nematodes will do the larva. The sprays will do the adults, and nothing gets the eggs. On evergreens, we're looking at spruce spider mite, and it's in the egg stage, so not a great time to control them. On ash, you're going to, on other deciduous trees, you're going to get the fall web worm larva and emerald ash borer, which basically we all know are just devastating all of this area of North America. So the trees are just being cut down, chipped, and removed, so you may not have to do an awful lot. Most people don't even have an ash left in their whole neighborhood, city, or town. With Larix, there's a Larix case bearer, which is in the larva stage, still hard to control because it is in the case. Magnolias, the magnolia scale is in crawler stage, and this is the time to get them with insecticidal soap. Water sometimes works, but the insecticidal soap being probably the best. With prunus, the peach tree borer are eggs and larvae. Now, in prunus, we're talking about all your cherries, peaches, apricots, nectarines, as well as plums, and, of course, purple leaf sand cherry, which is a plum cistina. So we know that there's going to be a lot of damage there. On pine, we've got pine needle scale, and it's in the nymph stage. It's a little easier to control, but you're going to have just insecticidal soap. On rhododendrons and taxus, the black vine weevil, all three stages. We discussed that one under the euonymus. So look at on roses, two-spotted spider mite and Japanese beetle. Surprise, surprise, right? The Japanese beetle will be in the adult stage. Syringa, which is your lilac borer larva, which is where it does most of the damage. Go for it. Get it as fast as you can. Either hand pick. I've had people actually push a thin floral wire up through the hole if they get to that stage to sort of spear the larva in the inside. Still, some of the damage is done, but at least it slows them down, and of course, the tree or the lilac can actually recover. On Thuya, you're looking at the leaf miner on the larva stage. If you've got a lot of brown edge and tips, then you may want to just shear your cedar hedges onto a drop sheet, and all of the drop piece or cut pieces have to go into a plastic bag of meat, go onto the street. Do not compost them, do not dig them in, do not use them as a mulch under or around other evergreens. Viburnum, the leaf beetle eggs are in the egg stage, which means if you look underneath the tips of the branches a little farther back, you'll see a straight line of very symmetrical, lighter colored spots. They may be slightly sunken or fairly level. And what that is the eggs have been encased in the branch itself, and the adult chews the bark as it makes the hole and spits it back out to seal the hole over top of the eggs until they hatch next year. Hard to control at that stage without just simply trimming them off, burning, or getting them out to the curb and gone from your garden. There are many other diseases going on. The cedar apple rust and hawthorn rust are working their way on Crataegus, which is your Malus, and Crataegus is your hawthorn. Okay, Malus is all your apples. This one, apple cedar rust, can also go after some of the scopulorums as well, which is a juniper. Amelanchier, okay, all the spore releases are on there for all the different diseases. It goes after your service berries. Deciduous plants, you're looking at powdery mildew, juniper, tip blights, and apple cedar rust. Prunus, you're looking at shot hole and in the leaves, and that's very, very hard to control. Forget it. Many of the trees, particularly street trees, if you have not been able to deep water, are showing scorch. This is brown edges on leaves, etc., moving in. Leaves roll up. There's no disease. This is simply heat bounce, heat, and drought. And if it is very devastating, if that goes on, and it can take as many as 2 years from this year, not including this year, I should say, that it'll take for the tree to actually recover from this scorch or drought. So it's important that you do water your trees. They're a very large investment and long-term investment in your garden. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.